everybody. Welcome to Long Bangers Thursday phone in association with Leeds Spirits. I'm Matty. Fair bit to get through tonight. We've got a new contract for Jack Iredale announced today, an extension to Lewis Miller's contract. I know said an extension to Lewis Miller, but that's not quite correct. It's his contract that has been extended that was announced through the week. We had some chat on Sunday about HSL, and I don't know if anybody wants to pick up the conversation about that. That was quite a good discussion. And we've got a couple of questions that have come in through email and Twitter as well that I'll pick the brains of the panel with. But Ian, you're first up tonight. Where do you want to start?
I wanted to. I mean, obviously, I'm delighted to Lewis Miller. Just like you said, I would much rather Lewis Miller re-signed if it was a choice between him and Cadden. But I wanted to cover two topics that you've covered in recent episodes, and one of them is me eating humble pie because who takes the credit for our performance this season? And you were talking about Malky, and I was very critical of Malky's appointment. As at the time I said it showed a real lack of ambition because I'd expected a lot more from the Black Knights coming in. And as Colin said on the programme, he said he's responsible for the football. So with the Hibs women top of the league, the under-18 academy top of their league, and the men's team in third place, it must reflect well on his performance, on Malky's performance. So, excuse me, I was clearly wrong in labelling him a sort of failed Ross County head coach, and I was ignoring the experience he had gained in his SFA role. And of course I said he only got the job because he was Malcolm McPherson's mate. And so I've just got to admit I was wrong. So because basically Malky seems to have done a very good job this season. And okay, it's still not the ambitious appointment I thought we might get with the Black Knights, but he's done a really good job. So, and I'm not just saying that because he's my cousin, but he's done a really good job. So I'm very, very pleased with the stability I think he's brought to the club.
Interesting to hear you talk about it because there was a conversation I was in on WhatsApp through the week, and we were talking about Malky. And the point I made in that one was we seem to have stopped making the mental football decisions that were plaguing the club.
Yeah.
So, we had one sort of sensible signing in January. There was no shit in the bed and sort of, getting 6 or 7 players in. The contract extensions that we've announced all seem to be fairly sensible as well. So Cadden, Miller, Iredale.
I agree with you, and that's the stability I was talking about. Because as you said, there's no doubt at all that a lot of people could have panicked when we were really struggling in Fad David Gray, and you quite correctly said that there's no doubt that Malky must have been somebody who was standing up for David. So I'm very pleased with that. And so that's my first admission. But I thought the interesting question that came in from, I think it was the Thailand guy, the guy in Thailand, the obsession with Hearts, obsession with Hibs,
Bangkok,
Bangkok, sorry. And so my best mate for over 40 years is Jambo. He used to be Scott Wilson's backup as announcer at Tiny if Scott had to be off. And he and his son have lived in Cambodia for many years. His son Chris is actually the general manager of the champions of Cambodia, and he's a top coach, and both of them are completely committed Jambos. But first and foremost, they're actually our family friends and my kids' friends too. And it was a couple of years ago when my kids were both still going to the games, and we suddenly started getting slagged off by Chris and his dad whenever anything happened, anything Hearts did well or anything Hibs did badly. And it actually came as a real shock to us, to us, because it was on Facebook, and it was verging on sort of vitriolic at the time. So we'd never experienced anything like that. These are close friends, we thought, and it stopped a long time ago. But I've got cousins on my dad's side. My dad's side are all Hearts supporters. I've got cousins who never miss a Hearts game, who go to hospitality, who go for their nights out at Tynecastle, and who even stay in a hotel. And they were completely unable to stop themselves on Facebook whenever they beat us. Now, none of that ever bothered me because I don't read social media. So I never see what Hearts supporters think about us. But it bothers me that some Hibs supporters seem to think we're having a successful season if we win derbies. And obviously I mentioned before how the atmosphere at Tiny can be really poisonous, and people seem to turn up at Tiny who never go to most of the away games, you know. But they seem to think we're having a successful season if we win derbies. So our competitors are not Hearts. Hearts are a mediocre team. Our competitors are definitely Rangers and Celtic, and we should be aiming to challenge them for the league title. And this season we've shown we're capable of challenging consistently, when in previous seasons we've fallen away. So it's the same as Rangers are obsessed with Celtic and vice versa. That's how their supporters judge their season. And that's why Rangers Celtic will never improve in Europe. I know it's 30 years ago now, but when I worked at Rangers, I remember when Rod Stewart came to David Murray's house, and David Murray got a picture of him wearing a Rangers top. And the commercial manager, Bob Riley, was just about to release this to the press. When, of course, what happened then was Celtic got a picture of him wearing a Celtic top as well. And I remember Bob Riley being furious. He says, when you were at Rangers, you never talked about Celtic, you always talked about them. And it was this total fixation about what Celtic were doing. And that's what a real limiting factor for Rangers Celtic. And I just want us to aim higher than Hearts. Hearts have never. I'm not obsessed with Hearts. I just, as Martin Boyle said at the Hibs bounce, I don't give a fuck. You know.
What I find about Hearts is when we play them, I can't stand them. I hate them, and I enjoy them losing at everything. You know, if there was a coin toss, I'd want them to lose it. When they were close to going bust, I fucking hoped that they would. You know,
Really,
like oh, really, 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 like I properly despise them, but I didn't think about them other than when they do something funny,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
then I thoroughly enjoy ripping the absolute piss out of them. Like
Uh,
it is one of my favourite things to do, and you get like the Hearts, like I'll do most of it on social media, obviously, like on Twitter, and just kind of throw slaggings out there. And you get them coming on saying, "Oh, you're obsessed," and they completely miss the point. And I'm not obsessed at all. I didn't spend any of my time thinking about them
yeah.
until they do something stupid. I'm obsessed with Hibs. Hearts are
Uh,
just there to be
and
taken the
that's
piss out
and
of.
that I think that's an okay attitude. But we as a club cannot be focused on beating Hearts. We have to be aiming higher than that.
Winning the derbies do make a difference to the season, though. Like I think it's not the one and only measure that you would take to see whether the season is a success. But if you were to take this season and finish third with a couple of, well, as we've done with two derby wins and a draw, and if not beat us, that's a better season than not beating them, isn't it?
St Johnstone away, Killie away, as Colin keeps on saying,
Hmm.
right? These are the games we should have been winning, right? St Johnstone away, Killie away, it's just ridiculous. And so, Hearts are, they can be a competitor, but we have to focus on trying to improve our consistency to challenge Rangers and Celtic. If we, as you said the other day, if we the three games that we've drawn, we could have been up there with Rangers, for
Hmm.
challenging for second place.
Joe, I'll bring you. Where do you stand on that? What's your thoughts towards them?
Thoughts towards what in particular?
To Hearts, like the idea that
I'm quite ambivalent about them. I really am. I quite agree with Ian. They're non-entities. They don't matter to us. We'll not be challenging with them next season. We'll be challenging with Rangers for second place, I think. That's where I think we're going. I really do. I mean, it's been great to have all these new signings or re-signings, Lewis Miller and Iredale and so on. I just hope they complete the hat-trick and get Rocky. And now I know that he's international now, and there's talk that he might choose to go away. Nothing's been signed yet, but I think if we get third place, Europe, and possibly just one knockout phase to get into the group stages of the Europa League, I think that might persuade Rocky to stay, because there's no question that back three has been a huge bit of our success this season. And I hasten to add, I know I said this last Thursday, one game to go, 18 games unbeaten.
mm-hmm.
As far as I'm aware, that's the best ever in the history of Hibs, 150 years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. From what I gather, certainly post-war. I don't know what the pre-war
And
record
I
was
actually
like.
think if we get the draw with Aberdeen, we'll beat Dundee United at home, and that should do the third place anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Saturday's game at Pittodrie is massive.
What do you think will happen with Rocky, Joe? Like I know there was. I saw it somewhere. I never heard it myself, but I think Andy Halliday and Tony Watt were out in the press saying Rocky's the best centre half in the league. I'm not sure if that was qualified with outside the Carter Vickers or whether it was unqualified. It's just he's the best. But what do you think will happen with him?
Well, I know I've just said what I hope will happen with him. I don't know what will happen. Why is he not signed a new contract or been offered a new contract by now? What's happening behind the scenes? And that we don't know. We can conjecture and whatever in these podcasts, Matty. And who knows what's happening behind the scenes? He's certainly earned a new contract. There's no question about that. Is it money that he's fighting for at this stage of his career? Or, hopefully it'll be cleared up in the next few weeks, because he's been a huge part of our success in this long unbeaten run.
And what do you think about Lewis Miller getting the extension?
That was well earned. Well earned, definitely. And I think he's playing in his best position at the right of that back three. I definitely think that's a great signing. Iredale's a great signing. So we just need to do the hat trick across the back three and get Rocky, and we're cooking my gas. That draw with Aberdeen, beat Dundee United, season's more or less done. And we can start looking forward to next season with far less money to be spent on transfers, I think. That's why it's worth paying a few extra bob in the contracts or whatever to keep likes of Rocky.
Certainly you get to a position where that money doesn't have to stretch across 7 or 8 players, and you could probably bring in 3 or 4 really good players. Yeah,
we need a backup goalkeeper and we need a backup centre forward. That's for sure. And it depends what happens with Sunderland, because if we can manage to buy Triantis, I know that's less than 50-50, then you're retaining the heart of that midfield that's been so successful for Hibs this season. So that get Rocky signed up first and then see what happens with Sunderland, because they'll be in the English playoffs for the Premiership. Who knows what will happen with that one? Because if we can't get a deal for Triantis, then we're going to have to get the checkbook out to get another comparable standard midfield player, because he plays a very important role in the success we've enjoyed this season.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you happen to see any of the game at the weekend with the 2 semi-finals, but the Hearts Aberdeen one with McGrath coming on. Did you get a chance to have a look at him?
Yes, I did, and it worried me because it'd be kind of ironic that if Hibs' unbeaten run is beaten by somebody who's going to be a highbie for 4 years on Saturday. So let's just hope he's slowly bedding his way and doesn't shoot the lights out against us. But I'm sure he'll be trying his best. He's a professional, for God's sake.
Yeah. You said like less than 50-50 for Triantis back. Is there anybody else in the team that you've not mentioned that you would want to see us hanging on to?
Well, the rest of them, I think, are on at least another 2 years to go in their contracts of the mainstay of the team, are they not?
So pretty much. But Venti, obviously, I think he'll be away. That's pretty much set in stone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And my pal Dylan Levitt, I think, has got 2 years to go in his contract. So, I think we'll maybe need to buy 3 new players in the close season, but re-signing Rocky's a big part of it, in my view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's he would be a real coup to get tied up again. Boyle was the other one, isn't it? Like Martin Boyle. I think there were some rumours through the week that's done, but I don't know if that was just gossip and tongues wagging or whether there was any merit to it. But that wouldn't be a bad one either, would it, Joe?
No, of course it wouldn't, because he's got a couple of years left in him yet at the sort of standard of football Hibs are hoping to play. And whilst he might be a yard shorter, he's still very, very fast in spite of that. And look, top scorer this season, of course you're going to want to keep up. Of course you are. The devil and all that jazz, Matty.
I know. That was when I'm getting dropped for a wee period in the season as well.
Well, that helped him. But look, Rocky was out of the team for a long while, and look at what happened to him coming back. So, terrific.
Nice one. Right, thanks, Joe. I'm going to bring Stephen in next. Stephen, where do you want to start tonight?
I think everybody, Joe and Ian, have made some good points. Probably start on what we've just discussed there about next season. I've said a few times throughout the season that we're going to rip up and start again in the summer, but I've kind of moved on from that position that if this group of players achieves third place and all that comes with it, potentially if Celtic win the cup, they've probably earned they've probably earned a new contract and the chance to play in the group stages. So maybe light bulb moment when Joe was speaking there about if you manage to tie these players down, you're not having to strengthen the squad too much in terms of potentially spending 7 figures and dipping into that windfall that comes with the group stages. So I would imagine the uppers at the club would probably want the money to go against the financial situation that's happened over the last couple of years. So it wasn't until Joe mentioned it that if we manage to get the likes of Rocky and Boyle down in another year or two, and then all the the riches that come with the group stage football. I mean, if it was Europa League, I think you and Colin said on Monday that's was it 4.5 before a ball's even been kicked, and then it's something like 300k for a draw, 400k for a win. If you manage to get a couple of draws or a couple of wins, that could be 6 million plus. There's the 7.2 million from the last set of accounts done away with just by qualifying for the Europa League. But even with the Conference League, you'll get the 3 home games, you'll get theoretically a much easier path to the knockout stages, unless of course you're Hearts and you've got the team that's second bottom from Minsk or something, and you only have to get a draw and you get beat at home. But it wasn't until Joe mentioned that if you manage to persuade the likes of Rocky and that to stay, you're not ripping up and starting again. You're actually just building on what's already there. And I think that, and I've said that a couple of times recently, that's credit to the players that are there that are potentially thinking, maybe I can't do better. Maybe I'm happy where I am right now and I'd like to see it out for another year or two. And with Vente as well, he's still got a year left in his contract, so we're going to get some sort of cash for him as well. I'm not sure it'll be the circa, 700k I think we paid for him. I don't think we'll get anywhere near that. But by all accounts, he's doing well for I can't remember the name of the team. Is it Pek Zwolle, I think, in Holland? Who I'm now a bit of a Pek Zwolle fan, if I'm honest. I still think Vente's potentially got something to offer, but I just don't think he'll fit into David Gray's style. So I think you're right. I think he will go in the summer. So you'd like to think we'd get 6 figures for him. So if you can offset as much of what you paid for him as you possibly can, and then even if you can't from the transfer fee, we'll have got a loan fee from Pek Zwolle this season as well. So you could maybe write it off as an ambitious signing 2.5 years ago that just didn't quite work out. So I'm pretty confident that if we can avoid defeating Saturday, Dundee United or Celtic need a point or a win to guarantee winning the league. I think they're going to properly go for it on Sunday against, or Saturday, whenever it is they're playing Dundee United. So if you've then got Dundee United at home in the second game after the split to potentially open up a 6-point gap, and Dundee United have still got a game against Rangers, a game against Aberdeen in the final day. I think Joe's spot on. If we can navigate the next 2 games, I think we've got a pretty solid chance of tying up the next couple of games. Because I'd like to think outside of St Mirren, I would like to think that we've got the best chance of getting something from the other games as well, against in terms of a head-to-head against Aberdeen or Dundee United. So I'm quietly quite confident that we can see it out. Bought tickets today for the last 2 games of the season, the last 2 home games. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going with my sister to the Dundee United game, and I'm going on my lonesome to the game against Rangers because nobody wants to go to see Rangers because they're absolutely horrible. So yes, I'm pretty confident. I'm delighted that the football's back after the comedy show at Hampden on Saturday, which was absolutely hilarious.
That game definitely gave some confidence that Aberdeen and all that. I was really disappointed with how they played.
They were shite. They have ridden on the coattails of that run at the start of the season, where I think even after played 11, won 10, drew 1, lost none, and they were still sitting a crazy goal difference. I think they'd only won 1 game by more than 2 goals once or something in the first 11 games, versus us recently who are winning games quite clearly, keeping clean sheets. Aberdeen did not impress me at all on Saturday. And fair enough, they were up against Critchley's X26 bus for the full second half, but I don't think they had a shot on target until extra time against a pretty mediocre Hearts team. So no, I've seen absolutely nothing on Saturday that really, and beyond a full Pataudry and the fans really getting behind them. We've outplayed Aberdeen. Maybe not outplayed. Maybe outplayed a bit unfair on Aberdeen in terms of stats and things. But the 3 games against Aberdeen this season, I think we've looked pretty comfortable, bar maybe the game at Easter Road, where ironically it's probably the worst. Sorry, the first game at Easter Road, the 3-3 game. Other than that, I think we've navigated the other 2 games against Aberdeen pretty professionally. So yeah, I'm pretty confident on Saturday.
Next one. One of the things you touched upon earlier when you were talking about the financial aspect, and I don't know if Ian's got his camera off. I don't know if he's still there, but Ian, you can keep me right here. I don't think there's a £7 million debt at the club waiting to be cleared. I think Ian Gordon covered that. I don't remember it being a loan. Like, I don't think he was expecting that back. So I think if we make Europa League or Conference League money, that's money that's going into the club rather than going to repay Ian Gordon.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, it's a balance sheet item that they've covered. So yeah.
Aye. So I think we're in quite a good place. We're not. It's not like when Rod Petrie was in charge and we had like had to sell Scott Brown and Kevin Thompson and that to just kind of to balance the books. I think it's a bit of a healthier position that we're in. Where do you stand on the contracts? Like, I think Iredale, we're just saying it's a given, like rather than me asking everybody. I think everybody's happy with that news today. Like, there's nobody going to be disappointed that we signed Iredale for a bit longer, is there?
No, it's refreshing. I think it's come up a few times that Hibs don't seem to do a lot of business towards the end of the season ahead of next season in terms of the pre-contracts and things. So I'm quite happy that we're getting our house in order before it. And again, if anything, you would like to think that it breeds confidence in the squad. You know, they're seeing the reward for putting in. I mean, in Iredale's case, he didn't really come into the team until mid to late November, and since then he's been arguably our best player. So I think it's a great example of basically if you put in the hard work, you'll get the reward. And Miller's a bit of a no-brainer. The lad is still quite raw, but you can see when he's on his game, he's definitely got something there. And I'm just a wee bit surprised with, I don't know the ins and outs of contract. I would imagine with it being the 1 year option that it was not so much over a barrel that they had to sign it, but we perhaps couldn't have offered beyond that at this stage. So who knows, that might get, I mean, with Smith and Iredale, they've been reassessed whilst they're only in the first year of the contract. So there's every chance that with Miller and potential others, if they, I think Boyle's got the 1 year option as well, if they re-sign, could be reassessed in summer. By the summertime, you'll know where we're sitting at in terms of potential group stage football as well. So the club's maybe got a little bit more in reserve to potentially get them in longer deals. But now they've actually signed. I think it's really good business. It's sensible. It gives the squad a bit of affirmation for next season as well.
It's got a good point that about the year giving us time to sort of reevaluate and pull together a better offer. When it was only the year, my thoughts were we've protected the asset, like we've stopped them leaving for nothing. So if a club comes in the summer, I was almost like, it's good that he's extended, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be here next season. It just means that if he goes, we'll get some money. But I actually hadn't considered how you'd put it there, and I think you're probably right. You're probably for a safety first point of view for the club. You get the extension agreed, and then that gives you a bit of wiggle room to sort of a new contract. Right, I'll get a couple of comments for YouTube, and then Michael, I'll come to you. Stevie said, evening all, hope you're all well. Iredale new deal is great news. Miller staying for another season is also good news. Rocky, Boyle and Chantis next would be the cake iced. Sandy said, evening long bangers, it's great. The real football is back this weekend. Who else lost interest in the Scottish Cup until the Jambos failed? David said, was at an event at Easter Road last week and Malky was very impressive in his talk and answers. Joe said, evening all. Dave said, hi guys, it's all looking so good at the moment. Great news with the signing. Let's hope our bubble is intact on Sunday. John said, when are we getting the help from the Black Knights? Maybe a goalkeeper and a striker from Bournemouth. So remind me to come back to that one because I believe the guy Paulson's going to come in the summer. The goalkeeper it's at Auckland at the moment. I think he's on his way to Easter Road, given the way that it's been reported over in New Zealand. Kenny said, evening everyone, Iredale is my player of the year, hands down. Joe said it's easier not to panic buy lots of players if you're winning regularly. Kenny, if you're guaranteed European football, think Black Knights will start to show their hand player-wise. I agree with that as well, Kenny. I think that's quite significant. Ronnie said, hi guys, great to see Jack commit into the club for 4 years. I'm sure Sir David Gray said there will be more when they triggered Miller's option. Another positive move. Kenny said, lose to Hearts 4 games, finish above them and get European football. I'll take that. John asked, best boozers in Aberdeen to watch Dundee Hibs versus Ouija Hibs. Best pub in Aberdeen before the game to watch another game? Anybody know?
Never been.
I never went to the pub. Last
we
couple
got
of times I've been to Pittodrie, just been straight to the ground.
we got a golf club. The 2016 bus. We got the golf club. What's it name? It's high up anyway. It's just a golf club, but I'm sure I'll try and remember what it is. But everybody's welcome there. It's there's another place. I'll try and remember where we were last time, but I'll look it up. I'll look it up while we're on. Yep.
Nice one. Stevie said, to be honest, for me, the most important thing is finishing above Hearts. Not losing the derbies is also a must. Hearts are usually always around top three, so they're a decent benchmark. John says you need to beat the bigger teams if you want to finish third consistently. Ross says, I'm with you, Matty. I despise the diets and the delusions of grandeur. John said, I love sticking it to the scumbles, the petter, the patter, the proper playground style. John said, beating the grunts and finishing third consistently are 2 paragraphs of the same bestseller. Great way to put it. Right, Mikey, I'll come to you. Where do you want to start tonight?
Kind of just on the extensions. I am glad for Iredale and Muller. I think Muller really has improved a lot since moving to right centre back. I can't say I was his biggest fan, but what Muller's got, I think, is almost more important in this league than what he's not got. Ken, he is a specimen, and he gets up and down in that. And in that right centre half, Ken, that goal that he created, like that doesn't happen if he's playing right back or in a 2 centre half, and it doesn't happen if Ken O'Hara's playing because he's not got the legs like Muller's got. Same with Iredale, glad. The only thing with the two of them is I feel like it does cement us to a back three next season. I can't know people wondering if maybe Gray would change it to kind of a 4-3-3 like he did at the start of the season, but I think Iredale, similar to Muller, is he's a great left side of a centre half, but he's maybe not a great left back, and he's maybe not a great centre back in a 2. Re-signing to it kind of cements us as a back three, which I'm not too bothered about. I think we've been our best spells have came in a back three with Ken in the past as well. So I'm delighted with that. What was that previous point you just said? I can't remember now, but I'd want to say something about it now. I can't remember.
So we were talking about, we covered pubs in Aberdeen, we talked about beating Hearts, we talked about...
So I kind of agree with Ian, but I also disagree with him in the sense that for me, I'm the same. Like, obviously I want to beat them in that, but it's beating kind of the weird teams round about you, know the team that's just a wee bit below you. You know what I mean? But where it is important is for the rest of the fans. That Jack Ross season where we finished third, most people didn't even recall that season. Obviously, COVID was a big part of it, but Hearts won in the league that season. Ken, so we only had the cup game against them where we got beat. So Ken, Jack Ross is a terrible manager because we got beat in a semi-final against Hearts, even though he got his third place. You know, so I agree with Ian that for me it's not the be all and end all, but for I think the majority of fans that go to the games, I think it is important, the derbies. Like, even if we get fourth this season, I think we all get third. I think we'll get it quite easily actually, but even if we get fourth, it'll still go down as one of the best seasons because of the Ken winning at Tiny, beating Celtic at home, winning away at Pittodrie. Ken, the games almost stand out more than the actual season.
Aye, we talked about it on Extra Time, Mikey. I think it was Extra Time. It actually might have been the Sunday episode. Bingo for Hibsnet had I think during the Jack Ross season there was loads of dialogue about Jack Ross not being able to win the big games, and there was definitely like a section of the support that held that against him. And despite the fact, like, we would all take a third place finish. Like, if you asked at the start of the season, finish third, but you didn't beat Hearts, you would go, fucking right, because they're not finishing above us if we finish third. But because we didn't beat them, and because we didn't beat Rangers and Celtic and have those sort of big moments, it definitely was held against them, wasn't it?
Aye. What annoys me about that is people forget we beat Rangers 3-1 in semi-final at Hampden. That kind of annoys me, that big game, and then we beat Aberdeen at the end of the season to kind of cement third. So I didn't like that stigma that goes with Jack Ross. But anyway, that is what goes with him because we didn't play Hearts or beat Hearts. So I think there is a wee bit of importance to it. On the semi-final, the Aberdeen Hearts game, they were shocking, Aberdeen. Like I thought Hearts were going to run away with it, and then Aberdeen get that goal for nothing, and then Hearts equalise. Shanklin hits it right at the keeper, best striker in Scotland, right at the keeper, and then they get the man sent off. So it's couldn't they go any better? But Aberdeen were terrible, but I'm not really reading too much into that. It's a semi-final at Hampden. They're playing against the morally best team and all that, and so I think they will be a lot better against us at the weekend. Still confident they will get a result, maybe not a win, but I can't really see us losing, apart from maybe Celtic.
Do you think there's a bit of case of Aberdeen choking on the big occasions? Like even when they've had it in their hands, like, you look at the game the week before, 2-0 up against Rangers. Rangers down to 10 men before half time, and Aberdeen didn't win that one. When they had the cup game against Celtic, and this is when they were at their peak, and they were flying, and they got scurried 6-0, 3-3 with us. When they were winning with minutes to go in the game, and they didn't win that one. They had the chance then when they played us again. After that, didn't they beat us? And then again after that, didn't they beat us? Do you think they've got like a wee bit about them that's sort of prone to choking on the big games?
So. Maybe he's got the bit of the Jack Ross about him that he can't win the big games. It's funny though, because the way Aberdeen play, you feel like they would be better in those games, because Aberdeen aren't like kind of an amazing possession based team. They're a counter-attacking team. They're a bit like us. They've got pace. They hit you quick on the break. So you think they would be good against those teams, but they've just no seem to do it this season, apart from the 2-2 against Celtic, which obviously the rest of the results have proven that's been a bit of a freak result. My only worry with Aberdeen is that I think they've got Celtic Rangers right at the end, and then it's Dundee United last. So I feel like they've got Celtic Rangers when you kind of want them, when they have got nothing to play for. The boys are all away off on a holiday, and it's a young team that's getting played and all that. So that's the only thing that worries me a wee bit. I don't think Dundee United will be much of a problem. They need to win games, and they're mere get draws and then get a lucky refereeing decision at the end to get a win or something like that. So they didn't really worry me. It's just if they do somehow manage to beat us, then I could see that kicking them on, and they have got, I think, a better run of games than we do.
I guess I'm loath to write Aberdeen off as much as I kind of making a point about them choking about games. I think they're a decent team. They showed over the course of the season they're a decent team. They've had two really good runs and one terrible run, and they're on a good run at the moment. So I think Saturday could be one of these games that it could go either way. I would say I think we're a better team though, just on what I've seen so far. I think each time I agree with what Stephen said, that we coped with Aberdeen in all the games that we played against them head to head so far. Chris, I'll bring you in next. What do you want to talk about?
I think, well, obviously, I'll just briefly go over the sort of contract situation. I think everybody's happy just to see the club have tied these players down. Most importantly, we've tied the spine of the team down. And that's the big thing that really pleases me, is we've got the spine of the team there, and we just add the bits around. But I'd probably move on to Saturday, and I think it's a point you just made about Aberdeen and pressure and their whole situation around the tickets. I think personally, the club have put more pressure on the players now, because the players will know what the club have done. They're not silly. They're not insulated to social media. They would have seen it, and I think that leads into that, puts more pressure on them to go and win that game. They'll have to come at us, and I think that plays into us. That plays into our hands, and I just think on Saturday, I think if we get around Shinnie and just stop him doing anything, talking to the ref mainly, but if we get in about him, which I would expect Triantis to do, then I think we're on to a winner. I don't see enough within them to really, really trouble us.
And what about the following week against Dundee United, Chris? How do you see that one going?
I just can't, it baffles my brain that our results against Dundee United have been we've been a referee cost us at Easter Road. And the first game at Tannadice, we were comfortable. Comfortable until we chuck it. Like, we make the mistakes to chuck the game. They're resolute in a lot of ways, but I just think we've too much. I think we've far too much going forward. Too many options for Dun United. I just think, and again, it's another one, Dun United have to come at us. They have to come out and play against us, whereas that's not really their game. And when they have started to come out, that's when teams like Dundee and the Derby absolutely take them apart. And every time I've watched Dun United, they always look like the poorer of the two sides.
Aye,
but somehow manage to get something. So I just think we just go in with the mentality, which I think Gray's instilled in this team. It's not about, they don't play the occasion. They just play the game in isolation. And I just think we'll go into that game, just like, as you said, another game, tick it off, move on. And I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll just go through these two games. We'll take what we get, which I honestly think we'll take 6 points. I just think we take 6 points, put it to bed, go to Celtic Park and see where we go for there. Because we're going to Celtic Park when league's done, we might actually do something there. And then that's us. We can just put our feet up and hope that Celtic turn up in the cup final and turn Aberdeen over.
Get the beach balls in. Aye, happy days. One of the things, I was on the Hibs Observer briefing this afternoon at lunchtime, and we were talking about the team that David Gray might start on Saturday. I knew the discussion was about Hoylett or Josh Campbell. What would you do there, Chris?
Do you know what? I think I'd just continue with Hoylett. I know he didn't have a good game in the last game. It wasn't really good, but do you know what? It's one of the ones where I feel the guile might just taking the ball in, and that may just be good for us. Whereas Campbell's more a high energy press, like press high up the park. I just don't think we need that. I think we might just need a bit of cuteness in that sort of 10 role, and that might be edging me for Hoylett. And the fact that it would be good to see him bang one in against his former club.
The former player thing comes into it. There's a right, and kind of is every former player always seems to come back to haunt their former clubs, but that can't be true. Obviously, there must be loads of former players that go and are absolutely shite against their old club, and it's just the ones that do something that you remember. Other John, who's he's away watching Restless Natives in Perth tonight, so he messaged in a question for us that are on here. So he said, question for those that are on, is letting players stay till the end of their contract and move on for free a sustainable strategy for the club? Related to Miller having the 1 year option taken up, do we sell or take the benefit of the player for the season, except extending the contract as a third option? So kind of, I'll let you answer that one first, Chris, and I'll come up to you, Ian. We've extended the contract for Miller for a year. Are we better holding on to him for the year and letting him go for nothing, or try to sell him in the summer?
I think we're better holding on to him. He's what, 24? That'd be right, 24.
Probably 24. I'm sure I looked up the other day.
Yeah,
my memory's shite, though, so that counts for nothing. But I'm sure it's 24.
24-year-old. We took the option up, and as Stephen said, it gives the club a bit of time to renegotiate the deal. It just gives us that option where we can sit and go, right, we've took up the option, which I'm assuming is on the same terms, but when we get to the summer, we'll sit down, we'll look at the terms again, and we'll move forward with that. It just gives the club a bit of time to see where we are, because I'm assuming if there was that much desperate need for Lewis Miller, the club would have just said there and then, we'll not extend your deal and we'll just move on. You know what I mean? There was a wee tinge of negativity around, like, oh, we're just trying to protect our asset and we're just going to sell him on. I don't think that'll be the case. I really believe that it's just buying the club a bit of time, and then we move on. I think the same will be with Boyle, who has that 1 year option as well. I think that'll be the same. I think that'll come out very soon, and we'll just give ourselves a bit of time.
Fingers crossed. Ian, what do you think? Do you think it's better for the club to sell a player rather than let him go for nothing?
The trouble with having old people like me on is we immediately think about Colin Steen and how devastated we were when he was sold. Peter Marinello was sold. Peter Cormack was sold. So all these guys, all my heroes, were all sold. The way we make, and the thing I just add to the list of things I hate about Celtic was the Hibs Celtics feeder team since 1888 banner, that they couldn't even spell Celtic correctly. Right, which is hilarious. They missed out the T, Celtic. And but Hibs should not be a selling club. That's not how we make money. We make money by winning games, by getting in European competitions. That should be our aim. Our aim should not be trying to finance a club by selling players. That's secondary. First and foremost, we have to win games.
Fair enough. And Joe, there was also another sort of element to that. I can't remember if we talked about this in the podcast or if I think it was a question that came in on Hibsnet and say that the amount of money you get for players playing international football and for featuring in international tournaments probably covers the transfer fees that you get for them. So if you look at Miller, he's in the Australia squad. Iredale's probably going to get to the Australia squad at some point. Triantis, I think, because he's been at Hibs for a season, he will get some form of payment for him, even if he's not here next season. Does that play into your thinking as well? If you go, well, we keep him for the year, and although we'll not get the transfer fee, we will get something from FIFA instead.
I think it's a bit of a red herring. Hibs have set their stall out. They've re-signed these players, albeit for a season maybe. The past pretty obvious. One thing I did want to leap in with that came at me is it's heavy odds on that Hibs are going to get third. Will certainly be fourth at worst and qualify for Europe. Whereas it's heavy odds on Bournemouth won't. And it could be the Black Knights are tempted to get the checkbook out or do a bit more because of Hibs' elevation into Europe. And they've got 25% investment in Hibs. And they may decide, hey, okay, Bournemouth had a great season, but they didn't make Europe, whereas Hibs are in the Europa League, either by player swaps or whatever. They could benefit from that, Matty.
I think certainly for the way that Black Knights talk about things, they see getting European experience at a club like Hibs as being beneficial for them moving players to Bournemouth further down the line.
Yes.
So yes. I agree. I think that where we land and finishing up in the league and where whoever wins the cup, I think if we're in the Europa League, I think that will change the thinking on some of the transfer activity. Stephen, what about you? Where do you stand on it? Players go for nothing or get the value in their performances?
Honestly, I'm fairly comfortable either way. You need to remember that freedom of movement in football and employment, the player can choose to go at the end of their contract if they so wish. They can push for a move. I remember a few years back, Jason Cummings signed a new contract, and even though it was for, I think, an extra 3 years, we all knew as soon as he signed it, he's probably going the next year or so. So he did that probably to get the club a bit of a transfer fee. So I'm not... I used to get quite upset when, favourite players left. I remember David Murphy moving on and Boozle about 15, 20 years ago moving on and being absolutely heartbroken. But then, the forever revolving world of football, players move on, new players come in. So it depends really what the club want to do. I'd say they're protecting their asset. They can choose to potentially extend the deal or offer an extension if Lewis Miller then says, you know what, I signed the deal because I was happy at the time. I see my future elsewhere. So be it. Try and get a figure. If not, at the end of the day, he's Hibs' asset. So run him down until the end of his contract. I remember I mentioned Gary Cobwell last week. We'll all remember Gary Cobwell signed a pre-contract at Celtic when he was still Hibs captain, and it pissed a lot of people off. But at the end of the day, it's like anybody on this call. You've got employment, you've got freedom of movement and employment, and it stretches to football players as well. So I'm old enough now to realise that, even dyed-in-the-wool Hibs fans are not going to want to stay at the club for their full career. And whilst I don't want it to be a selling club, even in the same country, there are far bigger clubs than Hibs. So ultimately, we are a relatively small fish in a big pond, and we're certainly lower down in the food chain comparative to other teams that have taken players off us in the past. Because ultimately, in football, money will talk, Matty. So, and if you can get better elsewhere, better terms elsewhere to protect you and your family, that sometimes motivates and is more ambitious for players than playing in Europe potentially.
Aye, I totally agree. I think it's quite a pragmatic way to look at it. Mikey, how about you? What would your preference be?
I'm kind of the same as Stephen. Like it kind of just depends. Like also like the situation depends. I remember Scott Brown was my hero, and I remember when he left, that proper devastated me. But the money we got for Scott Brown was at the time was like unthinkable. But then when you look at John McGinn, he was someone that maybe I would have probably rather have kept. Remember at the start of that season before he left, the amount of important goals he scored in Europe and that in the short period we had him with that season. And then you think of the money we got for him. When you think about it's no longer the value of what Scott Brown got. You know what I mean? Like what was it? We got 2 and a bit million. We got 4 million for Scott Brown. 2 and a bit million back then. You know what I mean? It's so. But then you also need to think if we did refuse that, how good would McGinn have been for us that season? You know, if he's unhappy that we didn't let him go to Villa, and we wanted to run down the contract to keep him. So it's not a black and white question here. It's so much to think about with it. And I, like Stephen, like I've long came to the terms that we are a seller club. That's just, I think there's only really like 6 clubs in the world that aren't seller clubs, and every other club is a seller club. Even Celtic sell their players to Ken, Brighton and all that, and then they sell their players to Chelsea, who then they sell their players to Real Madrid, who they keep, Ken, because they've got all the money. So
I think there's a player in that equation as well. It's not always just about the club. McGinn's a good example. And McGinn, I think, did right by the club by extending when he did, as did Scott Brown. You know, I think I remember Scott Brown signing an extension of his contract, and Hibs benefited because we got some more money. But you can't. I don't think morally it's right to stand in the player's way. And I think if you want to attract the next John McGinn, you can't stop John McGinn moving when the time's right. Like you have to be an attractive proposition for folks to come to you.
All the players that we bring in now, we'll show them John McGinn.
Aye.
And show them like here he is scoring a goal against Paris Saint-Germain. Only 10 years ago he was scoring a goal against Morton, Ken. So I agreed. You kind of have to let them go to then bring in the next prospect.
I think
there's 2 different things there, though. There's no doubt freedom of contract. Of course, players all have to go, and when they want to go, you know. But being a selling club means that you are committed to selling players to get the revenue you need. And I don't think we should be doing that. I think what we should be doing is winning games, getting into later stages of competitions and making our money that way and attracting more people to our ground. So we should not be trying to, we are not a selling club. So that is, we're not selling our players to bring in the revenue we need.
I get the difference that you make there, Ian. So it's not as in the strategy isn't we're going to sign players to sell them to keep the lights on. But we're bringing the players to be successful to keep the lights on, and when we sell them, it's an added bonus to help us get better. That's fair.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's like I think they both go hand in hand. Ultimately, sporting performance will drive the player trading model. And you hear so many clubs again up the food chain. Celtic talk about it, player trading. Rangers talk about it. Obviously, their player trading is horrific, in the terms that they basically have players that they can sell and then let them run down their contracts when they've no money to keep the lights on. But like even in the Premier League, it's player trading, and it's sporting performance will drive the player trading model, and they go hand in hand. So ultimately, what Ian's saying is right. We don't sell players to keep the lights on. We sell players when it's right for the player, the club, and the sporting performance has been met.
Aye. I think you're spot on there, mate. Also, from Alistair, who sent that question in, he said, we've equalled the number of games unbeaten since the 40s, which is a huge achievement. So if the club find themselves in the position of remaining unbeaten and securing third place after their away game at Celtic, which would be 20 games unbeaten by my arithmetic, should the club then give some of the youngsters a chance in the last 2 games or try to go 22 games unbeaten for the season? So, Chris, because you were on last, we'll give that question first. So, if we manage to beat the record and we secure third, is it see how many more games we can extend it by, or is it get the youngsters on for the last couple of games? And
I think it's a bit of both. To be honest, I don't think you can just sit and go, we're going to put 6 youngsters in the starting lineup. I think what you do is, I think boys like Rudy has to come in, because I think his development has been stunted in this run due to the fact that he's not played. He should have probably been out on loan. So I think he has to come in, and maybe we should be looking at the young boy Cleland and bringing them onto the bench. Because if we aren't going to keep a Dwight Gale next season, if he does retire, then we have a look at him, or we review him being that sort of third striker next season, or we look to then loan him out somewhere to get games to bring him back in January. So I think it's not wholesale changes, but we bleed 3-4 into the team and into the bench, into the starting lineup, and we go for there, and we just keep the good times rolling.
Fair enough. Ian, what about you? What do you think with it?
I agree with Chris completely. Just briefly, I've mentioned the Aberdeen pubs on the chat, Matty. Okay.
All right, nice one.
If anybody's wanting a Celtic ticket, because I've just found out that I cannot go to Celtic away. If anybody's wanting that, it's an over 65 ticket, but it's my daughter's birthday party that day, so I can't go.
All right, so there's a ticket going. Get in touch with Ian. Joe, what would you think then? Do you think it's more important to extend an unbeaten run if we were to be in that position, or to give the youngsters a shot?
Absolutely. Fuck bringing in the right youngsters. This is a once in a lifetime. No, I tell a lie. Once in 6 lifetimes, 150 years. If we get to the 18 games unbeaten, if we can make it go another 3 or 4 games, let's just do it. We've got to play our best team every game until the end of the season, because this will be a Hibs team will be remembered long after you're gone, I'm gone, our grandchildren are gone. This Hibs team with this run, if they can extend it even further. So we've got to play our best team right until the end of the season, in my view. Not even up for discussion.
It's a really unequivocal answer there, Joe. I like that. Stephen, what about you? What are your thoughts on
it? I think it was Walter Smith years ago when he was Rangers manager said that they should only be involved if they're good enough and if they're ready. It shouldn't be a token gesture. And I'm kind of that view, but that was when it was, I think, 5 subs. Now there's you can name 9 or 11, whatever it is. So I wouldn't have an issue with filling out the squad with them. But in terms of starting them, I don't think you should do anything to upset a winning team. I want to go the rest of the season unbeaten, exactly the same as Joe. I'm ready to tell my daughter, who isn't even 2 yet, that she's lived through the greatest Hibs team that will ever exist. I'm going to tell her that anyway, to be honest. If we can get to 18, if we can then get to 19 and then all the way to whatever, my maths is terrible, what would it be, 22 or 23 by the end of the season? That's, keep in mind it's 150th this year. If this team goes on to set a club record in the 150th anniversary, that's folklore stuff. That's almost as big as 2016 and winning the cup after 114 years. So I don't think you should do much, really, if anything, to potentially derail that progress. But you know what? David Gray will probably have an idea of what he wants to do with the squad going into the pre-season. And if he thinks that some of them are ready to be in the squad and be involved, because keep in mind, there could be a huge crowd against Dundee United. There could be a huge crowd against Rangers. There could be a party atmosphere against Rangers. What better way to potentially bring some of the young players, if they are ready, into that environment, give them a real taste to see what it's like to be at a big club, on a big day, celebrating hopefully a big achievement.
Can I say, I agree about letting them party at the Rangers game, but not before that.
No.
Mikey, what are your thoughts on it?
My answer was going to be not so much the youngsters. I would like to see more Nathan Mariah Welsh, Manny, they players, and like what Stephen said, if the youngsters are ready, no just a token gesture. But Joe kind of changed my answer, to be honest. I'm now like, no, let's carry it on. Even with the mindset, can we take this into next season? I don't know if it was, remember Steve Clark's Kilmarnock team, where it was over the 2 seasons, from Christmas to Christmas, they would have won the league. If instead of being summer to summer, it was Christmas to Christmas, they would have won the league. but obviously that's not how the league works. So even if we can carry it into next season, that would be unreal. I mean, I think Celtic away will kind of be the undoing it. It's not often you beat or even get 2 results against Celtic in one season. But I know let's aim high. Let's take it into next season.
Aye, it's good to be talking like this. Know how it could have been given how the season was earlier on. Stephen, you got your hand up. I'll get your point and then I'll get you to give me a score prediction for Saturday. And we'll wrap up.
It's Mikey just really made an excellent point there. If you look at the form table during this run, we're on a par with Celtic. And now when you're talking about 17, 18 games, it's not an inconsequential amount of games. Mm-hmm. That's form that we could take into next season. And, I don't want to sound like Jan Dander here and say we're going to push Celtic for the title, but seeing this form, confidence breeds confidence, and we can keep the nucleus of this team together and strengthen it with the absolute shit state that Rangers are in. Fair enough, they might get that investment in the summer. Push for second, not just push for second, try and close that gap to Celtic. I know they're going to have the Champions League again guaranteed for another season, but right now, if you look at 17, 18 games, we're almost on a par, and Celtic's finances are way, way ahead of us. So I have no issue with the club being overly ambitious, but it needs to obviously be with a hint of realism. But fuck it, try and keep this confidence and this momentum going right to the end of the season. So I'll retract my answer and say, don't bring the youngsters anywhere near the team if they're at risk of derailing this form.
Fair enough, right? And your score prediction for Saturday?
Confident will certainly avoid defeat. I think it might be similar to the game up there where we are blistering on the counter-attack and Aberdeen just fail to get behind us often enough. So I'm going to go 1-0 Hibs, but a relatively comfortable 1-0.
You could do with the keeper having the similar kind of game as you had on Saturday. I think that would help us. Joe, what do you reckon the score's going to be?
I reckon it's going to be a tough game. I reckon it will be a 2-2 draw. But can I quickly say, I don't agree with either having Josh Campbell or Junior Hoylett in the team, because we've got Nicky Cadden to come back, who's been out for the last month, remember. So that just a passing thought.
Right enough, Nicky. It's good to have these options, isn't it? Chris, score?
I think 2-0, a comfortable 2-0. I know they've got Nisbet, right, and he's put a few in recently. I just don't see enough threat and enough movement in the middle of the park for Aberdeen for them to really get us. So I'm just going to say comfortable 2-0. Boyle will get his customary goal against Aberdeen, and I think Cadden will get the other one. Nicky.
Nice one. Mikey?
I'm going to say 2-1. I agree with Chris. I think Boyle will get one. And then just to see Ian's reaction, I think Big Cookie will get one too.
Right, Ian, first and last word for you tonight. What's the score going to be?
We have nothing to fear at all about Aberdeen. Only that Shaden Morris, he's the only problem. If Nicky Cadden sits on him, then I think we'll win. I think we'll win 3-0.
I'm loving the confidence. Okay, well, we will be back, Colin and I, tomorrow with a preview show at 4 o'clock here on YouTube. If you want to tune in for that, you can submit teams. A couple of folk have sent them in already. Just longbangers@gmail.com. Drop a wee email in, ideally with an image on it, because that makes it easier to show on the screen when we talk. It saves me having to try to put on a team selector app thing. So I did that. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks, folks, for coming on. Been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone on YouTube, and catch you later.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.